Well, time for another alligator adventure. So in case if you guys are new to my drone videos and are wondering, today I'm using my DJI SE Mini 2 in order to search for some incredible wildlife such as that vulture over there. Though today my main goal is to see how many alligators I could find up in the STA Trails using my drone. These STAs are man-made and serve the purpose of filtering out the polluted waters from Lake Okeechobee so they could flow into the Everglades clean and purified. These man-made wetlands also act as the perfect environment for a variety of wildlife such as the birds you can see below us and all the alligators you're eventually going to see later in this video. But first you gotta admit the scenery of this location is pretty beautiful. It also only took a little bit before we found our first alligator, but this one was particularly shy. The alligators in this part of Florida don't exactly see people too often, and when they do see people it's usually hunters trying to capture them. So these alligators are particularly shy, which is why I chose to approach them with the drone instead of by foot. And while the alligators in this area may be shy, it still didn't take long till we found our second alligator, as they are quite plentiful in this area. Of course, it is very important to remain cautious while filming alligators with the drone, as they could still jump up and snatch the drone, in addition to the fact that you don't want to disturb any wildlife, regardless of the species. Especially because a scared animal doesn't exactly make for that good of video footage, and also because of the fact that alligators are still a protected species despite no longer being endangered. And like any other wild animal, they of course deserve your respect and attention, as alligators could be just as beautiful as they are dangerous, all depending on the circumstance. In this case though, this alligator's just chilling and posing no threat to anyone. And unlike a few other crocodilian species, the American alligator does not view people as a food source the same way something like the saltwater crocodile does. Alligators, on the other hand, are strictly opportunistic. So as long as you use common sense, you'll be perfectly safe. And anyone who's seen my old YouTube shorts knows this, as I get very close to him pretty regularly. And so far, I've came out unscathed every time. Still though, it's always good to keep in mind that these are wild animals, and if you're not careful, mistakes can and do happen. But thankfully, to many people's surprise, alligators are fairly well-mannered compared to most animals. But with a bite force up to 3000 psi, they are still more than capable of defending themselves. And here you could get a nice little close-up of this American alligator. Every American alligator has its own unique face print, similar to a human fingerprint, and alligators' head shapes do vary quite a bit from individual to individual depending on their age, but all of them have a unique U-shaped snout, which happens to be a trait unique to alligators in modern-day crocodilians, of which there are 28 species of crocodilian, though only 2 of them are alligators, the American alligator, which is featured heavily in this video, and then you have the American alligator's much smaller relative, the Chinese alligator, which unfortunately is critically endangered and only has about 300 individuals left in the wild. Thankfully though, the American alligator was able to recover much more easily, due to it having a much larger range and diversity in habitats than the Chinese alligator. And now, thankfully, the American alligator is of least concern in most states. It wouldn't surprise me if this particular stormwater treatment area alone has more alligators than the entire Chinese alligator population in the wild worldwide, because the American alligators here are certainly quite abundant, to say the least. After all, that's like our 5th one right over there. Still, alligators are far from the only animals that inhabit these wetlands. These wetlands are home to over 300 different species of bird, in addition to over 300 different species of fish as well, all of them acting as a great food source for the many alligators that inhabit this area. There are also plenty of mammals reported in the STAs as well, such as bobcats, white-tailed deer, coyotes, and of course everyone's favorite, the river otter. And due to all the stormwater treatment areas being placed alongside the northern Everglades, the python population's pretty low in these areas, allowing for a very high dense mammal population in spite of the lack of land mass. Still, the highlight to any trip to this area is of course its high alligator population. And of course we saw plenty of them on these islands. Currently it is a pretty cool day out, so that means there's going to be a bunch of them basking. and as this is a mostly open water area, all the alligators tend to concentrate on these islands. But first, before we record all of those guys, I figured I'd still go out into the open lake and see if there was anything else notable to find on the drone. As stated before, there's over 700 different species of vertebrate that inhabit these STA areas, and I'd love to find as many of them as I can, such as that beautiful osprey over there, which happens to be known for literally diving into the water in order to catch fish. And despite being common, they're easily one of my favorite species of falcon, mainly due to their very unique feeding habits and their iconic calls. And their, in my opinion, pretty cute face as well. It's overall pretty hard not to love these birds. And now we finally get to the Alligator Islands, and since it's a pretty cool day out, there should be tons of them basking, starting off with these two individuals right over here. Believe it or not, alligators, while they can be territorial, can also be quite social, and they usually do not have problems with one another, unless if forced into a confined space or in the breeding season where males could be particularly territorial. But from my experience in areas like this, alligators seem to be more social with one another due to human pressures caused by hunting. Man, look at the smile on that gator. And guess what? There's a bunch more of them over on that island right over there. You can also see some swimming off right in the distance, and believe it or not, the waters here are quite shallow. And in total, that's about 8 alligators in one frame, all ranging from about 4 to 10 feet in length. And as you can see, for the most part, alligators do prefer to hang out with individuals of their own size, as that's the scenario where they're least likely to cannibalize each other. And yes, alligators do eat each other on the occasion. But they can also be quite friendly with one another, and some cases have even been reported having literal bonds with one another. Really, it all depends on the circumstance, just like most other animals. And some of them even have basking buddies, like it wouldn't surprise me if these two bask pretty often together. And while it's good not to humanize any animal, as they likely do not share the same level of emotional complexity that humans do, it is important to keep in mind that they are still all conscious beings, and do experience emotions such as anger and fear, as that one right over there certainly did not like the drone. As yeah, believe it or not, all alligators have their own unique personalities and therefore responses to different alien objects, such as my drone. Some of them are freaked out by it, while others might even be curious and fascinated. And overall, it's kinda hard not to be fascinated with this entire ecosystem. The STA Trails happen to border the Everglades, with this specific location being the east side of STA 1, and happens to be one of the most biodiverse places near my home. Plus, this location is pretty gorgeous as well. I mean, how can't you love the sunset? And man, I can't wait to do more drone videos in the future. Speaking of videos, if you guys want a little update on how my next documentary is going, the next video will be about New Zealand's prehistoric birds, mainly the host eagle, the moa, and a couple other smaller bird species, and that is going to be one hell of a video. So if you enjoy my content, please feel free to like and subscribe so you could get more epic videos like this coming straight at you real soon. And also, I want to give a huge thanks to everyone in my audience for watching my videos. This is currently my main source of income, so every view, every like, every sub helps.